on the bottom of my boots where I don't leave tracks. They can't track me. So I got this parachute cord, drilled 10 holes in the soles of my boots at 45-degree angles.
Let me tell you the best story.
And I took a wire for a needle and made that parachute cord a needle, and I sewed these mop replacement heads onto each boot. And I mean, I'd half hitch it between every stitch and go back through the sole. And you could stomp the ground and you couldn't make a track. And so we got in some heat over there. We got pressure. And my friend had toe sacks wrapped around his boots. And he was still leaving a mark. You couldn't tell whether he was going forward or backwards, but he's leaving a mark. We got under some pressure, and I said, get in front of me and I'll dust your marks. So I'd stomp his marks that I could see him making, and we got in this heavy brush. And we holed up with trucks all around us. We could hear voices. We could hear the clothing on these guys dragging on the brush. The cat claw while he was dragging on their brush, on their clothing. And we were 10 steps from them, buried down, face down. They were walking right past us in circles. And finally they pulled out and cranked up and left, and we stayed hunkered down for a couple of hours. And I said, man, this ain't my style of hunting. I got to do something. So I reached in my pack and pulled out my headset. And I put on the Houston Astros playoff game when they had that 48-point lead at half and blew that lead in the second half. And I was listening to that on my headset, trying to picture myself in Reliant Stadium in Houston. I wanted to be anywhere but where I was. And finally, I pulled my headset off. I couldn't take it no more. I'm not used to being pinned down like that without helicopters being up. So I pulled my headset off and I said, Dennis, we got to make a move. I said, this ain't my style. I said, we got to make a move. I can't sit here anymore. I said, I forgot one thing. He said, what's that? And I said, a shovel. He said, what would you do with a shovel? I said, I'll dig a hole and bury myself. I said, let's get moving. So we get up, we start tippy-toeing, and Dennis was taller than me, but I was crouching low not to be seen peeking through the brush. And all of a sudden, he's behind me 10 steps, and he goes, psst, see me. He said, come here. I tiptoed back to him. I said, what? And he goes, isn't that a truck right there? And I looked, I said, yes, let's get back in the brush. So we got back in the brush and hunkered back down till dark. And we moved 4 miles after dark to get out of that area where we'd been pressured and tracked. And the next day, I mean, same deal. We could hear the heat all around us. And I said, when we get out of this ranch, they can have it. I said, I'll never be back to the Robert East. I said, they can have they can have the deer, they can have the ranch. I said, I'm out of here. I didn't want nothing to do with that deal.
Go back?
Well, no. The last day of that hunt, though, George Moore met back up with us at the pickup point at the highway, and he'd killed a 20-point buck with 5 drop tines, and the beam had broke off on one side going up and down on the break. It was a gorilla. Just exactly what you go over to a ranch like that to get.
Yeah. Sitting at the...
I mean, it scored 180 something, but hell, there's probably 20 inches of horn broke off of that rack. But I mean, it was hot. And we come right through the Border Patrol checkpoint on the way back. And we just had the head out of season between us in the back seat, and we're full camo, but George had to change of clothes, and him and the guy that picked us up sitting up front. Me and Dennis was in the back. We pulled up there to the Border Patrol checkpoint in front of God and everybody and all them bright lights, and he said, where y'all coming from? He said, I had to pick these 2 guys up in the back off the rig, and this guy was just riding with me, and he goes, all right, y'all go on. We didn't even get checked for, being hunters. And I said, I don't care. I said, y'all can have that ranch. I said, I'll never be back. I've never gone back.
Worse than the King.
It was worse than the King Kennedy Ranch ever thought of being. I mean, when George popped that shot, he shot that big deer the very first morning when we separated. And it was like they had every intersection in their road to Senderos marked a letter in the alphabet for the Sendero and a number for the road. And it was like intersection AK-47, and here come the troops. And when he popped that shot, we could hear trucks fire up from miles away and come pouring into that location. And I mean, they had to have it marked somehow when they were announcing it on the radio. And they just brought in the troops. And Dennis said, well, do you think we ought to go back and see what kind of a deer George shot? And I said, hell no, every man for himself. Let's get the hell out of here. I could hear the troops coming. But we rattled a couple times 1,000 yards away, and we heard a buck come running out of the brush. And I looked up, and I said, that buck ain't running from another buck. He was looking behind himself. I said, he's running from a man, Dennis, let's go. He said, you're right, let's go. That buck's mouth was hanging wide open. He was like, I got a man on my ass. He was hauling ass. But anyway, that place was nowhere to be. I passed some big deer in there, but I wasn't about to kill one in there. I wasn't going to pop another shot and get surrounded again. That wasn't my style.
He had one story of Tom East. He said he was sitting there laying in the deal, and he said he seen Tom East right up face to face, but Tom didn't see me, but I saw him.
I believe he was on horseback. Tom East used to ride a donkey in that heavy brush, and you could hear him braying all morning one morning, and then later that afternoon, after I'd killed a really big deer, that freak over there, I heard metal on metal, and it was in a strong southeast wind. The wind had shifted and come back hard out of south bucking, and I could hear that metal on metal jingle on. It was like spurs or the metal works on a saddle. And I lifted an ear and I listened, and all of a sudden I heard, and it was a horse right on me in 20 yards or less, and I broke, grabbed everything, tippy-toed out of there, and never looked back. I'd rattle them up. They'd heard me rattle and come close, and they'd drop the range school and let that horse smell me out. They'll do it. There were no horses in that pasture unless there was a man on them. They got close to me that day, and I got out of there, highballed out of there. That was just one more close call.
Charlie, tell them about Ted Nugent signing autographs.
Here at Tom's cabin, we had Ted Nugent on a celebrity hunt.
He charged, Ted came here and brought a celebrity hunt.
20 men.
$2,500 to come be with him on the hunt. And he played the guitar, read the Bible, did all different kind of things. But then during the time that we were here at the cabin, he was signing autographs to everybody. And so, Charlie, let Charlie go ahead and tell the rest of it.
He made an announcement that he'd be ready to sign autographs momentarily, and for everybody to get their bows and their guns and whatever, their caps, whatever they wanted him to autograph for them. So, as soon as he got started autographing stuff, this man named Mike Hogg from Houston, he read the article in the Houston paper about my arrest and had kept up with me. He came here kind of to meet me. Well, he said, Charlie, will you autograph my bow for me? And you could have, heard a pin drop. Everybody got quiet and looked over, and Ted cut his eyes at me, and I said, well, get the man to autograph it first, and I'll be glad to. But I would have paid him $1,000 to say that, but it was funny.
He did it anyway.
It was funnier.
There was about 8 or 10 of them. They was all lined up, getting everything autographed.
Yeah.
Caps and
You'd have thought I paid him. You'd have thought I'd paid him off to say that in front of Ted.
Autographing their bows and all that.
It was worth a fortune.
Well,
If you could have seen Ted's face, it was.
he said somebody more famous than me is here.
Yeah, that's the thing. That really got him.
So when's the last time Ted was out here?
It's been about a year, I mean.
Oh, really?
Or more.
Well, I have to come out here and do some cooking for him.
He spent the summer in Michigan,
Oh, really?
getting out of the hot weather, I guess.
Yeah,
Oh.
this friend of ours is one who found him, met him over at the Young Ranch, and he brought him over here. Well, at the end of the evening, I had guided him and got a big ram, and I agreed that I'd go with Ted. He wanted me to go with him to the Young Ranch, spend the night over there, and sit with him over there. And we kind of gotten a friendship started, and they told him a lot about me in the book I was writing. Well, we get over there in the tree and got kind of quiet for a while, and Ted said, so you're pretty famous here in Texas, huh? And I said, yeah, I may be here in Texas. I said, but don't forget. And he said, what's that? I said, you're in Texas. I had to have a little fun with him. But he was out here playing with my longbow one day, and I've got a video of this to prove it. He was shooting my longbow at 8 or 10 yards, just, getting a feel for it. And I walked out there and caught him, and they said, come show us how to shoot your bow, Charlie. So I walked out there and got Ted the caddy for me. He was carrying my arrows, and we moved on back to about 30 yards. And the wind was blowing real hard, and I thought, well, probably ought to be looking about 3 or 4 inches right for the wind at 30 yards, but I said, I'm just going to go ahead and take dead aim. I started bird's eye on the middle bull, and it was a multi-bullseye target, and I started sticking the bullseye just left of the center bull. And I put the first 2 arrows, nearly split the first arrow with the second arrow, and then I put 3 more in right beside them. Ted's caddying for me saying, wow, that's great shooting, Charlie. And he hands me another one. He said, man, that's killer. That's some killer shooting with a longbow. And I've got that on video. I put 5 arrows inside a 1-inch circle with Ted Nugent caddying for me. That's pretty fun.